bienvenidos to another grammar lesson with teacher Catalina. Today, we are learning how to conjugate the verb tener, which means to have. But aside from learning how to conjugate tener, to have, we're also going to learn some important tener expressions because in Spanish, we say things such as, I have a certain number of years, I have hunger, I have thirst, and all sorts of things. So stay tuned, don't forget to like and subscribe, and once you've done that, let's head to the classroom. Today we are learning how to conjugate the verb tener. Tener means to have, but we also use it with some tener expressions to say things such as my age, or I'm hungry, or I am thirsty. Even though you don't say to have in those expressions in English, we do have to use the verb tener in Spanish. I'll go a little bit more into it in a few seconds. So the first thing we're going to do is learn how to conjugate the verb tener. Although tener ends in an ER, it does not follow every single one of the patterns of regular ER verbs. So we have to be very careful with the verb tener because it does have some irregularities. Don't be afraid of the verb tener. There is nothing to be afraid of with irregular verbs. It's just a matter of remembering in another side of your brain, keeping them separate from regular verbs, and then remembering their rules. That's it. ¿Listos? Ready? Vamos! Let's learn how to conjugate tener. Alright guys, let's get into conjugating the verb tener. Tener. Notice how it does end in an ER, but like we talked a few seconds ago, it is not a regular ER verb. Look what happens with the conjugation of yo. The conjugation for tener, for yo, is tengo. Yo tengo. Notice how we actually got rid of the ER, but we added a GO. That is not following the regular rules of ER verbs. So that is an irregular form. Yo tengo. Tengo una hermana. Tengo un hijo. Tengo 30 años. Whatever you choose to talk about what you have to say tengo. Yo tengo. Good? Excellent. When it comes to tú, él, ella, usted, ellos, ellas, and ustedes, we also have a bit of a change that I want you to keep in mind. Look at what happens. Did you see what happened there? That E on the stem also had a bit of a change. So that E changes to IE in all of the forms except for the yo, which we already talked about. And it does not happen on nosotros and vosotros. I know it's a lot to remember, but I'm going to give you a few tricks in a few minutes. Let's move on to conjugating tener for él, ella, and usted. Remember, we have to deal with this change in the stem. So let's look at the conjugation there. So it would be tiene, tiene. Él tiene un hermano, he has a brother. Ella tiene un libro, she has a book. Again, notice, IE, we have to make sure that that happens. Otherwise, you wouldn't be conjugating the verb tener correctly. We did say that for nosotros and vosotros, we don't have a change in the stem, and that is good news. So in that case, we will conjugate it normally, like if it was a regular ER verb. So you would say, nosotros tenemos. Nosotros tenemos una familia grande. We have a big family. For vosotros, it would be tenéis. Again, no change. And we would say something in Spain like, vosotros tenéis hambre. You guys have hunger. All right, our last conjugation of the verb tener, ellos, ellas, and ustedes. And it does have that change in the stem. So let's look at that. So we would say, ellos tienen, ellas tienen, and ustedes tienen. Now you have all of the conjugations of the verb tener, And you have noticed that tener is definitely an irregular verb. It has a little bit of a change in the yo form with a go, G-O, and then it has a change in the stem in some forms, not in the nosotros and not in the vosotros. So what if somebody asked me, ¿qué tienes en la cartera? ¿Qué tienes en la cartera? Let's see, ¿qué tengo? Tengo una regla. Tengo una regla. Tengo un libro. Tengo un libro. Tengo unos marcadores. Tengo unos marcadores. Tengo un cuaderno. Tengo un cuaderno. Tengo más libros. Tengo 2 libros. 2 libros. Tengo mucho papel. Tengo mucho papel. Tengo protector solar. Protector solar. Tengo unas tijeras. Tengo unas tijeras. Tengo un sacapuntas. Tengo un sacapuntas. Tengo una cartuchera. Tengo una cartuchera con muchos colores. Tengo muchos colores. What is the easiest way to remember this? Very simple. The first thing that I want you to make sure you make a mental note of is tener is an irregular verb, period. Once you put it into your irregular verb side of the brain, you will feel more comfortable. It'll give you a warning when you're conjugating it. Now, the easiest way to remember this verb right now is this way. Hopefully you already know the subject pronouns. So then all you have to memorize is tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, tenéis, and tienen. Again, if you know your subject pronouns, which I have encouraged you to make sure that you memorize them by now, then all you have to memorize is this. How can you memorize it? Maybe you take a piece of paper and you write the conjugations over and over and over a few times until they have comfortably made a place in your brain so that you can recall them more easily. Now remember, as with anything, the more you practice, the more comfortable you will get with this. So don't panic. You're going to be okay. Just practice a little bit. Categorize that verb tener into a special place, and you're going to be fine. And don't forget, this video is here forever and ever, so you can play and replay it as many times as you need, so you feel comfortable with the verb tener. So what if you want to say you don't have something, or you don't have hunger, or you don't have thirst? What do you do? As with any other lesson we've done before, we're going to put the no in front of our verb. So maybe you will ask me, ¿Tienes hambre? ¿Tienes hambre? Do you have hunger? And I may not be really hungry right now. So I would say, no tengo hambre. Another example would be, ¿Tienes 20 años? Do you have 20 years of age? And I wish, but I don't. So I would say, no tengo 20 años. No tengo 20 años. So again, remember, the no always goes in front of your conjugation of the verb, and you will be good to say you don't have something. Although tener means to have, and we can use it to talk about the things we have, like family members or items in a backpack or items in your house, you also will be using it for different expressions in Spanish. They may sound a little bit weird to you because you wouldn't use the verb to have in English, but we do have to use it in Spanish. Let's look at some of those expressions together. The first one, and the most important for right now, is going to be to talk about age. In English, you say, I am a certain number of years. In Spanish, we are not a certain number of years. So we don't use the verb ser for age. Instead, we use the verb tener. And I want you to think about it this way. What we're really saying is, I have a certain number of years of life. When you ask me, ¿cuántos años tienes? You think you're saying, how old are you? And although that is the explanation behind it, what you're truly asking is, how many years do you have? How many years of life do you have? So notice that the question, ¿cuántos, how many, años, years, tienes, do you have? So now let's talk about how I would answer that question. The way that I would answer that question would be, I have, so tengo, and then the number, años. So tengo 20 años, tengo 30 años, tengo 40 años, however old you are. So the formula to answer your age is tengo, I have, number, and then años. Remember, you're saying, I have a certain number of years. Remember, depending on who you're talking about and who has a certain number of years, you're going to have to use the correct conjugation of tener that we just learned. So if you want to say, he has 4 years of age or 4 years of life, you would say, él tiene 4 años. Él tiene 4 años. So again, keep those things in mind. When we learn the conjugations, you have to always use them depending on who you're talking about. Other common expressions include tener hambre, tener sed, and tener prisa. So let's kind of go over them together so that we know when to use which. Now remember, when you look at these expressions, although the tener is in the infinitive form, you have to change that tener depending on who's performing the action. So instead of saying tener hambre, do you know what tener hambre means? To be hungry, to have hunger. You have to make sure that you change that tener to the person that is hungry. So if I'm hungry, I'm going to say, tengo hambre. Tengo hambre. I have hunger. I know you are hungry in English, but in Spanish, we have hunger. The same thing happens when we're talking about being thirsty. If I have thirst, I have to use this expression here, tener sed, to have thirst. So, tengo sed, él tiene sed, tú tienes sed. So again, keep those things in mind. Good? Tener prisa, to have a rush, to be in a hurry. We're going to use it as well with the conjugations of the verb tener. So if I'm in a hurry, if I have to be in a rush, I'm going to say, tengo prisa, me tengo que ir, tengo prisa. But maybe I want to know if you're in a rush, and I would say, ¿tienes prisa? ¿Tienes prisa? So again, remember that tener part of these expressions here has to be changed depending on who we're talking about. So let's go one more time over expressions together. So again, here are our expressions. Tener, number of años, is going to be used when you want to talk about your age or somebody else's age. Tener hambre, when you want to talk about hunger. I have hunger, you have hunger, they have hunger. Tener sed, remember, you're thirsty. You have thirst. I have thirst, they have thirst, we have thirst. And tener prisa, to have a rush, to be in a rush. So we're going to have to change the verb tener. There are other expressions with the verb tener, but these are some of the ones that you're going to see for the most part all of the time. Woohoo! You did it! Muy bien! Chócalas! Dame cinco. You conjugated the verb tener, to have, and you also learned how to use tener with some of those expressions that we covered, like to have hunger, to have thirst, to have a certain number of years, and to have a rush when you're in a rush. So again, remember, tener is a bit of an irregular verb. It follows some different rules than regular verbs, so you have to remember to change it in the correct way. I know you're going to do awesome, and I can't wait to see you conjugating more verbs.